Okay, so let's talk about startups. Before we go into the definition, let's do a simple exercise. Which one of these do you think is a startup? So you have PiggyVest, you have GIGM, you have Printivo, InterSwitch, Paystack, and Sterling. And hopefully these are all companies that you're fairly familiar with. So PiggyVest is an app that lets you save. GIGM is a transport company. Printivo lets you print t-shirts and caps and all kinds of things online. InterSwitch is a processor. They allow you to accept online payments. Paystack is in a similar boat. They also help you accept online payments. And Sterling is a bank. So which of these do you really think is a startup? So we'll come back to this exercise at the end of the lesson once we've talked about it. But kind of write down, figure out which ones you think, and you'll see if you're right at the end, right? So what is a startup? Well, there really isn't one single definition, just a lot of crazy different options from a lot of different people. And depending on who you are and what your interests are, you'll have different definitions. So I've put a bunch of definitions on the screen. I'm not going to read them all out, but I want you to focus on things. So one comes from Paul Graham, who's the founder, one of the founders of Y Combinator, which is an investment vehicle that helps really early stage startups. And they focus on startups are all about growth, right? Then there's a definition from Eric Ries, who says startups are all about creating new products and services. Um, then Investopedia talks about the stage a business is. It's in its early stage of operations. These are three wildly different ideas. None of them is wrong. None of them is wrong, but like they're all talking about different parts of the business. And this is what I was trying to say in the introduction. So I wanted to have like one standard definition of what a startup is before we go on. So when I throw the term startup out there, we're all on the same page. So here's my definition. A startup is a business that focuses on innovation. They tend to be high risk, high rewards businesses that directly depend on changing the way people live. Now, I've chosen these words very carefully. High risk means that you do not know whether it's going to be successful. There are a lot of failed startups out there. But when they're successful, they're very high rewards. Think Uber, think Airbnb, think Paystack. Oops, I just gave you the answer to one of the questions. But think Paystack, think like all these different businesses and apps that are making massive amounts of money. Maybe not massive amounts of money, but they have a huge following, a huge usership, and they've just completely changed the way people think about a thing. So, for example, think about Uber and transportation. You used to be able to take taxi. You used to get taxis everywhere. You used to haggle, and now, personally, I can imagine my life like without Uber. Like I have a car, I still drive, but I still use Uber. It's completely changed. I will never go on the street and haggle for a taxi ever again. If Uber is not available, then I drive. Like that's really how much it's changed my life. Like I cannot imagine life pre-Uber, and that's what startups do. At least in my definition, they change the way people live. So based on that definition, which one of these do you think is a startup? So here are my answers. I would say PiggyVest, Printivo, and Paystack. Not necessarily GIGM, InterSwitch, and Sterling, because GIGM, InterSwitch, and Sterling, well, maybe InterSwitch is controversial because InterSwitch might have been a startup when they first started, but they kind of transitioned into traditional business now, in that they were changing the way people were doing things, but then that became the new standard, and then Paystack iterated on that standard and became a startup. So if you don't know what I mean, so InterSwitch was helping businesses get online, but the process was very long, very complicated. You had to pay a lot of money. Then Paystack made it so anyone could. You can literally go to paystack.com and sign up for sign up with a business and create a payment link, and you could be accepting payments within the hour. PiggyVest did the same thing for savings. A lot of people went to traditional banks and had to have this whole fill out plenty of forms. PiggyVest just gave you an app on your phone. You can save at any time. You can actually have recurring debits. So every day, take 100 naira from my account, and it goes into a savings account. Printivo, you used to have to go to Shomolu or the printing areas. You had to order in huge batches. Printivo kind of made it so that individuals could do smaller batches and order them online and have them delivered. So this is what I mean by changing the way people do things. So when you're thinking of your idea, you're thinking of your startup, if your startup relies on people changing their behavior and then also relies on growing really quickly, then you probably do have a startup, right? Yeah, and just keep in mind that behavior change is actually a really difficult thing to do, which is why so many startups fail. But I'm going to be showing you how to kind of avoid that failure epidemic in this course, so please stay tuned. So now that we know what a startup is, we've come to the end of Module 1. So I want you to sit, think about your idea, and think about like all the different startups that you can think of. And yeah, we'll go on from there.